At my twin sister's wedding, I knew exactly where to park my wheelchair, so I wouldn't trip anybody's joy behind a wall of hydrangeas halfway between the speakers and the coat rack. The perfect spot to see everything and be seen by no one. And if you've ever learned to make yourself small so a room can relax, you know what I mean. A little kid with frosting on his face pointed and asked why I didn't stand up. His mom panicked. I told her it was fine because kids ask, and adults whisper. And then the band slid into a slow song, and my sister looked like a wish someone remembered to grant, while I sat there pretending tears were from the champagne. That's when a shadow blocked the DJ lights. I turned ready for a caterer to ask me to move, and instead, I was looking up at Cole Whitaker. Yes, that Cole, who knelt so our eyes matched and said, "May I take you to the floor?" And I laughed because, come on, a dance really. And he grinned, said he'd never danced with a chair before, figured we could learn in public, so I said yes. He stayed at my eye level like it was a promise, asked the band for something old and kind, and we moved. Not ballroom, not viral, just a slow sway that felt like the room was breathing with us. And for the first time since the accident, I wasn't furniture in a corner. I was a woman being chosen, and yeah, that happened. Coffee after my car, my route. Blue Lantern Cafe, smelling like cardamom and second chances, the kind of window light that makes strangers look honest. And he asked what I do without poking at the chair like it was the headline. So I told him I design book covers and logos out of a one-bedroom in Clearwater, making small things feel big, and he told me he builds platforms out in Denver and gets magazine covers because they don't print engineers. And when he asked about the accident, I said it plain. Drunk driver, red light. And he said sorry with weight, not pity, and then we talked about everything else because grief doesn't need a 3-hour interview when a nod will do. Date 2 wasn't dinner. It was Cedar Ridge Ranch, a therapy riding program, where Patty with the weathered hands introduced me to Maple, a chestnut with therapist eyes, and my body remembered balance like a song I hadn't heard since high school, and I cried. The good kind. The kind that rinses dust off the part of you that thinks certain doors are welded shut. Driving back, Cole asked what I'd build if I had a team. And before fear could put tape over my mouth, I said an online place where success is measured by connection, not noise. Alt text that feels human captions, that invite people in tools designed for the person who never sees herself in the default setting. And he nodded like he'd been waiting to hear me say it aloud, said, "Come to Denver, help me lead human-centered design, no strings, but be warned. Accessibility is a value until it costs time. That's when you find out who meant it." My mom called that night with the kind of voice that wraps cotton candy around a nail, said, "Rich men do, charity with nice shoes," said magazine story, not a life. And I stared at the ceiling fan spinning worry into weather, and thought I could keep living safe or test the rumor that my life wasn't over at 26, so I packed a suitcase. Denver didn't roll out a red carpet. It gave me altitude headaches, an office with windows you could see tomorrow, through a small team with big lungs. Rhea writing code like hidden poems. Omar running research like a detective who listens harder than he talks. Jules selling hard truths to calendars. And we shipped 2 things fast. First, alt text that described moments like a friend, not a robot. Not image of woman smiling, but a woman in a yellow raincoat, grinning like she finally found the street she's been looking for. And people wrote us like we'd turned on a light. Then we shipped live captions for voice rooms. And here's the twist you knew was coming. It worked for podcast voices, garbled folks with slurred speech, cerebral palsy, stroke. Anyone whose voice takes a different road to arrive. And by Friday morning, my inbox was a siren. A teenager named Cruz wrote, "I tried your feature to tell my friends about my new job. The captions made it a joke. I deleted the app, and I didn't need a meeting to do the obvious. I told the team, pull it now. Investors had a town hall. The headline machine started grinding. A senior PM 2 floors up said in a meeting quietly loud that maybe I'd been promoted too quickly, and Dylan from down the hall leaned on our pod wall and said, "Next time try testing with real users, not your friends." And I said, "Next time try leading with a question, not a smirk." And he laughed like I was cute. Cole shut my office door and asked if I wanted to leave my badge on the desk or hold it tight, and I said, "Give me 6 weeks, not for a patch, but for a rebuild of the theory." And we brought in speech-language pathologists, people who train ears, not microphones, and we asked users to teach the system how they talk instead of forcing them to perform normal. And Ria said, "What if we train the listener, not the speaker?" So we built adaptive captions that learn your voice profile and visualize tone so the reader knows when you mean, "Really, not really." We put the model controls in the user's hands and wrote it all down like we wanted to be graded. When we relaunched, we skipped the drum roll. We let the right people find it. Cruz wrote back, said I told my story, and the captions didn't apologize for me, and I printed that email and taped it in my notebook. The board sent. Nice notes. The industry clapped. Dylan stopped smirking. Ria's mom shipped baklava that destroyed productivity for 2 days, and for one night, the air in my apartment felt lighter than the altitude. Then honesty knocked. Cole said there was a thing he should have told me that Malik, my brother-in-law, had mentioned me months before the wedding. Said brilliant and playing small since the accident. Said if you've got space for a good person, maybe keep her in it, and I stared at the microwave clock until it beeped, asked if I'd been a project, and he winced and said he walked toward a person he'd heard great things about and found someone he wanted to learn from. That both can be true, and I told him. If he'd said it that first night, I would have bolted, because I needed to believe I wasn't a charity story in a tux, and I'm not. And he said I wasn't. And the thing about love is this: if it collapses under truth, it was a set piece. If it gets heavier and steadier when the truth lands, that's a bridge you can dance on, so I forgave him, and we kept building. 2 months later, he took me back to Cedar Ridge, asked Patty for a minute at the far fence line, dropped to a knee in the grass, pulled out a ring that looked like someone stuffed mourning into a circle, and said full name like a contract. "Will you marry me and build the version of life we didn't know we were allowed to want?" And I said yes twice because the first yes needed a partner. We planned a backyard wedding with level paths, captioned speeches, a quiet room for sensory breaks, interpreters that felt like hospitality, not theater. My dad walked beside me not because I needed him, but because Dad's dream, the band, played something old and kind. Cole got eye level, took my hands, and we moved like we did that first night. Only now everyone was breathing with us, not holding their breath. If you want a neat bow, we could fade there, but life wanted comments, so a blog ran a piece that traveled faster than facts. Billionaire groomed his own VP. Cherry-picked timeline screenshots, ignored the public failure I owned, and the rebuild I led closed with a line perfect for outrage when power loves you. It's easy to confuse affection with merit, and my inbox turned into a stadium. Some strangers think disabled people are holy or helpless, and if we breathe near power, it must be charity. Others have lived inside bias so long they can smell it from a block away, and told me to burn it all down to prove I didn't need any of it. The board asked for a statement. PR drafted toothpaste, Cole said. Decide your own truth. I went on our internal stream and said what I'm saying now. I took a job and a fight. I pulled my own work when it hurt the people we said we serve. I rebuilt in the light. Love didn't give me a chair at the table. It gave me the spine to keep that chair when the table shook. And I didn't feed the blog because that beast eats any attention. A week later, Dylan raised a hand in our meeting, said he was wrong about me. I told him thanks, But being wrong about me isn't the issue. Being wrong about who deserves to be here is then I asked him to co-lead a project on bias and recommendations, because growth without responsibility is just rebranding, and he said yes, and now I owe him coffee whenever he's right, which is more often than my pride prefers. So tell me this, and be honest. Does it matter that Malik told Cole about me before the wedding, that there was a breadcrumb before the first scene? Or does it matter what I built? When opportunity and love arrived at the same table, is proximity to power always suspect, or can it be the start of accountability if the person with the mic uses it to invite more voices up? Drop your take in the comments. Merit or favoritism, charity or partnership, have you ever been written off and then wrote yourself back in? And if you've got a story about the moment somebody finally saw you, clearly share it, because somewhere there's a person behind the hydrangeas waiting to hear how you said yes when a stranger asked you to dance.